Hello, viewers, and welcome to the Team VVV podcast. First one of 2020. Here we are in March already. The months are flying by. Goodness, it's been a really busy time, but there's a lot happening in news, and we want to get back to catching up with the regular news as well and developing the weekly racing gaming podcast as well. On future editions, we're also going to be asking you guys for questions and feedback so we can include that in the podcast and have a chat about that as well. Of course, I'm joined today by Kevin.
Hey,
Hello, Kevin, and welcome back. It's the two of us having the chat here about all the latest racing gaming news. And today, as we're talking, is Assetto Corsa Competizione is coming out for PS4 and Xbox this summer. Big surprise, this news that it's coming up now. It was one of those games that I was sort of under the impression that it was going to be released on PlayStation 5 rather than the current consoles because of the, how demanding it was in terms of the console hardware. Rather interesting to see how it converts really from the PC. It seems to push the PC quite hard. What are your initial thoughts, Kevin?
oh, major surprise. Like you said, we thought this was going to be on the PS5 and the next Xbox because it is such, graphically it's intense, isn't it, on the PC? And of course, with all the various calculations in the physics, we just assumed that this was going to be a next-gen title. So I'm massively surprised. And, it's interesting, it's come so late in the generation. So we didn't think it was going to happen at all. So a sort of double surprise in a way that they've left it so late, as well as having it on the consoles in the first place. So it's another game that's real sort of thoroughbred sim racer on the console market, which is great to see. When you're thinking back a few years ago, we saw the likes of Project Cars that was really the torchbearers, and of course the original Assetto Corsa followed soon after. So it's great to see another sim racer on the console market. It just makes it a more viable place. Makes it more the norm now to see more simulation-oriented titles on the console. So hopefully this will open the doors yet again for future titles to come across. We're talking like Race Room, etc. Those sort of real sort of PC, traditionally PC games now can have a platform perhaps with the new consoles to come across. Should these games be successful, which they have been. We've seen Project Cars has sold multi-million copies. Assetto Corsa, the original one, has to have done well for them to port over Competizione. So, they're clearly doing well enough for the titles to keep coming. So it's great to see. It's always good to have more competition on the consoles, particularly. And it's just great news, isn't it, all round, really, for sim racers.
Yeah, I mean, it's come as a big surprise today. I think, as I was mentioning earlier, I really felt that this was going to be a game for the next generation. That they were going to release it on, say, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. So it would be a sort of a seamless transition from the PC version, optimized, high res, high frame rates, lots of power and grunt to deal with the physics. So it has come as quite a big surprise. But you've got such a big market for the PlayStation out there. You can't ignore that market. It's just the fact the conversion process and how that's going to be. Well, Marco Mazzuruto from Kunos has mentioned that there's going to be a couple of extra packs in there as well. A GT4 Championship and a British GT pack, which is going to be released on PC as well. So it's coming for the consoles and PC to improve the package. I don't know what that is in terms of content. I mean, when we talk about British GT pack, does that include the British GT Championships? Does it include the GT3 and GT4 classes he references there? Does it include the tracks? Or does it just include the Blancpain courses? I don't know yet. So we haven't been given any information on this at all, actually, by 505 or by Assetto Corsa. So it's just been kind of put out there, but we haven't really got any direct information to ask any questions. But either way, interesting. That will add to the roster of games that's available. It gives them a decent window because there's no competitors out. And I think that we may even see, with obviously the coronavirus, we may even see a delay in the release of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. So it's not impossible to say that's going to happen because of manufacturing issues in China. So that gives them an even bigger window, I suppose, because when I think of a competitor, I think of Gran Turismo. When there's a new Gran Turismo out on PlayStation 5, that's going to be where people go. When there's a new Forza Motorsport out on Xbox, these are big hitters. Plus,
only competitor I can think of is GTR 3. But we don't know what's going on with that because, I mean, we said late last year if we haven't heard from it from X amount of weeks, it's unlikely to come out this year, and
Yeah.
that's what happened, you know. And it's all gone quiet again this year, and
Yeah.
because we're in March now, who knows what's going to happen with that? I mean, it could just release in the summer, couldn't it, as a sort of stealthy release?
Yeah.
In which case, Assetto Corsa could have some competition by then. But at the moment, it does have that nice window to itself, doesn't it?
It does, and we don't know what's happening with Project Cars,
Yeah.
because obviously they've done the deal with Codemasters. What's happening with Codemasters and Project Cars sort of titles? That's another thing that could just come out of the blue in terms of announcements. So yeah, they've definitely got a window, but that window could change very quickly depending on other things that are happening in the last part of the console life cycle. I think we'll learn more about that in the next few weeks. Interesting to see, but exciting news for console racers. Another big racing game coming to console, and one that I really should be spending a bit more time. I wish I had more time.
Don't we all?
And people often say to me, "Why don't you play this game or that game?" And my time is very much focused on one game at a time these days. I used to cover a bit of everything. People complained, "Oh, you're not good enough at each game." So now I do less because that way I can play the games more and get a bit better at them. And that's why last year I dedicated a bit of time to Gran Turismo, getting really into that. And of course the WRC, and now Isle of Man TT and Overpass. So just really focusing on a few games at a time. Now, we mentioned the coronavirus, of course. Big news today as well is that E3 has been cancelled.
Yeah.
Not a huge surprise. I think after the Game Developers Conference was cancelled, this was inevitable. Really, it's going to change things this year. It's going to change how business is done. I think E3, however you look at it, has lost a lot of relevance over these past few years. Sony haven't been there. Nintendo do their digital event. It's not what it was years ago. And one of the big issues was in 2017 they let in the general public. And that damaged the show quite significantly. I always remember saying, there were 4 of us YouTubers there, represented several million views we could get on a game, and you'd have 4 guys in your way just playing it. So in the end, they got 4 guys to play the game, and they missed out on the millions of views from the YouTubers. And it's no good. You need to have media. You need to have streamers, getting on your game, streaming it, making video content. That's what E3 is. It's a trade show. It's a business show. And it's lost its identity. I think that this gap in the year could be really bad for E3. I know people will say E3 will be back next year. I'm sure it will be back. But I still think there's great concern as to whether it returns in quite the same way. Do we need E3 in the same way as we did when we've got Gamescom? Do we need E3? I think we could do with a smaller show in America and a smaller show in the UK, a smaller show in other countries, because then people don't have to fly all over the world. They're talking about reducing carbon footprints. Why do we need thousands of people flying here, there, and everywhere? Games these days are digital, so there's no reason to travel to a country to see that game. What happens with a lot of us who produce YouTube videos is we have to fly to E3, very expensive to get there, and then film the games. And some of them are made in the UK, like Codemasters. First time you're going to see a Codemasters game is at E3. And you say, well, they're just down the road in Leamington Spa. Why can't we go there? No, can't show you. First time we're going to show it at E3. Okay, then. So if you can't get to E3, you don't see the game. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Yeah. And I think this is where, the games industry, needs to look at itself and say, is it really necessary, or is it just a booze up? And yeah, for a lot of people, it's just a booze up. They go there, have a few parties, have a good time, and I think that's there's that to it as well. So it's the necessity of E3 is not there in the same way as it used to be, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see how business is done without a show like. Do we need a show of that scale like that for that purpose? This is going to be an interesting year as events are cancelled, and life will go on. The games industry will go on. It will continue to sell products irrespective of the E3 show being in existence. So your thoughts, Kevin? I'm having a little bit of a rant about it there, but your thoughts on E3?
I wonder if it's a bit premature, given that we're 12, 13 or so weeks out. Is it premature them cancelling it already? Who who knows what the scene's
well,
going to be like in June? You know, the coronavirus could all have passed by then, or you know, very much on the decline. But I feel that E3 was a very important time for Xbox to really sort of get one over PlayStation, because PlayStation were not going to be there. We understand that Xbox were going to have a massive showing, and you know, that was certainly a good opportunity for them to sort of flex their muscle. And without that, I just feel that it hurts Microsoft a lot more than it would PlayStation. You know, so it's a shame.
I agree.
E3 was a fantastic event, like you said. The magic's gone out of it. Many companies, EA and other Sony, they're just sort of abandoning it almost, and it just every year it just loses a little bit more and a little bit more. And you know, we really needed Sony on board, really, didn't we, for the new console reveals? And without Sony there, again, E3 was left sort of as a shadow of its former self. So with this news, it really is a big blow, isn't it, to E3? You know, it's already down, and we're sort of kicking it.
It is.
Now,
but you know, like I say, you know, the reason why they've got to cancel it now is one thing: they know it's only going to get worse in America, right? It's going to get a lot worse in America in the next few months. Okay, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse before it gets better. It's going to get worse here before it gets better. It's going to get a lot worse in America before it gets better. Now, however long it starts to get worse, so we'll wait and see. But when you're cancelling intercontinental flights and hotels, there's paperwork to be done, there's stands to be cancelled, there's hotels to be cancelled, and meals and everything else. Better that it's done now than do it at a later date. So I think logistically speaking, it's such a big operation for everybody that you can't just cancel it a week before. People book time off work, everything. So I think they've needed to do that. But I think in terms of relevance to the show, anyone who feels that the E3 show was as good as it used to be is talking nonsense. Its relevance is nowhere near what it was. I mean, if I go back to the first time I went to E3 in 2001, okay, it was like a show of magic there. Okay, there was no video internet, there was no TV cameras or video cameras, hardly like there is today. You would walk into rooms and see games nobody had ever seen, nobody will ever see, because there was no way to see them. I remember that year was the year we were being shown the Nintendo GameCube for the first time, and we had private rooms with Star Wars and, you know, Luigi's Mansion, and it was just incredible, you know, the excitement. Then when I went back there, you know, for example, 2017, of course, good example, that was when they allowed in the general public, and the show had lost its soul. You know, it was like, I've seen, you know, there were queues of people queuing up to play games that have already been released in the shops. You know, it's that kind of thing. And you're standing there thinking, why is everyone queuing to play a game for 2 hours that you can actually buy now? You know, what's going on there? And it was, and some of it was, you kind of feel like you've already seen it. You know, there was less in the way of excitement than there was sort of years ago. I think because we see so much in terms of video, or we've already played demos. But fighting with general public to play a game was, and it's funny how moody the general public get as well when you queue jump. You know, for me, I love a good queue jump. I love just walking to the front of the queue and saying, "Excuse me."
Nobody likes that guy.
Nobody likes that. You know, I mean, I love it, but nobody likes it.
You know, I think about
this. I get some really dirty looks from people, really, really dirty looks, and then they clear everybody off, and you set your camera up and everything. And but you know, it shouldn't be that difficult. You know, I'm there to do a job. That is, jump on, get my 10 or 15 minutes of video content, and jump off to the next game. That's my job, and that's it all day long. I've got no time for queuing. If you need me to queue, we won't get footage on your game. So what do you want? Do you want footage and exposure or not? And that's basically it from a media perspective. You're there to do a job, get it done. Yeah. And I think that's the difference between consumers and everyone else. So, yeah, there'll be digital show from Microsoft this year, right, digital demos, digital videos, digital show. It will be just as good as it always is. There'll be millions of people watching online. I don't think it'll make any difference whatsoever. You know, E3 can say, hey, 50,000 people came in a day. Big deal. Big deal. YouTubers are doing hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of viewers every day. It's nothing like it used to be from a media perspective. So E3, It's a shame it's not happening because we all love the buzz of E3, but it has to be said, the show was in a tricky place in terms of where it is in the scheme of things, and I'll be interested to see how things. There'll still be an E3 show, I think, of sorts during that period. There'll still be a game celebration. It will just be online. A lot of news and press releases will probably still happen. We'll keep our ear to the ground on racing game news, and we'll go from there. So that's E3 news. What else has caught your eye, Kevin? Anything else that's caught your eye this week?
It's been pretty quiet. We're sort of in that lull now, aren't we, in between console generations. I guess we could touch on Monster Truck Championship.
Yeah, that came out of left field, didn't it? Where did that come from? I mean, literally, it's funny actually. We talk to games companies all the time. We talk to Nacon with TT and everything. Didn't know anything about this game. Comes out of nowhere. Bang! There's a Monster Truck game coming. So it is interesting. I mean, they tried Overpass. They tried truck racing, and now Monster Trucks. It's good that they're doing some variety. I like this. I like that they're trying something new. Though I have to admit, the demo does look very, very early, and it's at the moment it's very basic. It needs a lot of work to be done on it, I think, to bring it up to standard. Be interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah, it looks okay. You've got the interior viewpoints and such, but like you said, we don't know how far along that build is in the trailer. But yeah, it's coming from the developer Teon, I believe they're pronounced. PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. And like you say, it's just another game that sort of has that niche appeal, and it's good to see all these different genres that we're seeing in recent years. So it's just another one for the collection, really. It'd be interesting to see how it comes together, because it is a sort of a genre that has very few and far between titles that are decent. With monster trucks. So we're overdue a decent monster truck title. Hopefully this will sort of bridge that gap. But it seems to be. It has 25 circuits from different cities in the US. There's 18 different vehicles, so there's certainly a lot of elements there. They've got customization elements as well. So they've got a few things going there. Just remains to be seen how it all comes together. How are the physics? That's the most important question, isn't it? Physics and frame rates as well.
Physics, frame rate. For me, one of the things I noticed in the trailer was a bit lacking was the environmental detail.
It's always tough though, isn't it? Having stadiums around, you're having to render that stadium, all those people, atmosphere, and I mean,
they do it on Monster Energy Supercross really well, and they've got really nice dirt and texture detail. There's deformable ground. I mean, there's a lot of things there. You want deformable cars. You want to squash those cars. You want deformable ground. There's a lot that I would like to see in it. I think it's one of those situations where we could end up with a bit like Overpass, in the sense that it's got some good elements, it's some good fun, but there's a lot missing that it needs to take it to the next level.
The suspension physics don't look too bad actually, from what I've seen here in the trailer. So
great,
who knows?
Great. More for me, it's down to graphics and visual look and polish, and just general other elements that are in the game, really, fleshing it out. So let's wait and see. Monster Truck Championship, obviously later this year. Another game as well I'm just keen on seeing, I've mentioned, is the Hot Shot Racing, which is now produced by Curve Digital. Hoping to meet a developer on this soon. We followed it since a couple of years, really.
Been a long time.
And what was it called? Racing Apex. And I will just say, I mentioned it in the trailer video, but I just feel that it's lost a little bit of the Sega arcade machine style. It's like they've loaded more detail into the game, and it's lost the style of the original Vision. And that's my only concern about it now. There's a lot more colours, there's a lot more details.
Yeah, it's a lot different. It's quite
very
bright,
different vibe.
It's
changed the vibe.
Yeah,
it's not right. It's overly colourful. It's going a bit too crazy. I think you really got to think about the restrictions there were on game development years ago, and how to build around that. And I think that it's so many retro-inspired games missed the mark, and they had it early on, but they didn't in the handling. I had somebody talk to me about the handling, and they didn't like the direction, because they said it looks like a Sega machine but handles more like Ridge Racer. Right. So it was just, so I'm quite interested to see how the handling is, but also play the final game. But as you guys know, I mean, I'll speak to the developers and I'll always give my thoughts, but I'm just a little bit concerned that from a Sega stylized perspective, they've sort of lost their way a little bit with that one. There was another game coming out actually that I've seen that's looking interesting. It's called Formula Retro Racing as well by Repixelate on Twitter.
Yes.
And he made a game last year, which we covered. I forget the name of it now. Futuristic racing, tunnel racing game. But this now is bang on, looking much more like virtual racing. The handling still needs work in the videos, no doubt about it. But he's getting better all the time. I've noticed the viewpoints improved, the way the car drives around, the sort of bouncing there was to it's all improving. It's got destructible cars and stuff like that look really impressive. It looks really cool. It's really got the old vibe much closer to the whole virtual racing style to it. So he's got some good stuff going on there. If he can get the handling right, it really needs the handling in place though. No point having great looking game if it doesn't handle. You need to enjoy the driving aspect of it. But if he can get that right, he's onto something special. So as we talk about it, I'm gonna see if I can get some footage of it, or I'll just show you guys some screenshots. But yeah, that's a very interesting looking game there. Elsewhere, there's a couple of other things happening as well. I've been following the Art of Rally. June is still working on the Art of Rally, which is looking, well, fantastic. He's adding crowd simulation now, so that crowds split out of the way when you're driving along.
Yeah.
Really cool ideas for crowd simulation he's adding there. So
Yeah.
I love it. I love the detail from an indie developer, the way he's thinking about things like this, bringing this atmosphere. He's putting all this time into crowds. So, they run across the track and then they run out of the way as the rally car comes along. You can't hit them. He's
a game
designing
like
a system,
that,
so
you need like a decent soundtrack, don't you, for a game like this? And then it will
it's got a
take on
great
a different atmosphere. There's no co-driver, of course. It's all skill based. You see enough in front of you to react, of course, to changing conditions and stuff. So it's sort of minimalistic, and it sort of puts the focus on, I guess, like the atmosphere, but also like the handling of the vehicles is key. And it's all about that handling, isn't it? That satisfying drifting mechanic that it has, and it just looks, it's so simple but so fun, isn't it? As long as you get the handling spot on. And this game has gained so much interest, hasn't it? The social media interaction on this game is unbelievable for an indie title. I don't believe I've seen anything quite like it.
No,
I guess the only
June
comparable.
is a great guy, great community, and I've got to get back on it. I said to him I was going to run some stuff back at Christmas, but ups and downs. I didn't get round to it at the time, so I'm definitely going to get on that later this year. And I just, again, he's a developer I just want to support. I just think he's a cool guy. He's working really hard on something that's unique, and just adding little elements like the crowd to it, I just think it's great. All right, they're going to be little dots with flags, but it's great. I love all that.
The
With indie
sentiment
games,
is there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I just, I'd love to see crowds in proper rally games. I mean, don't get me
yeah.
wrong. If you had crowds in say WRC, they'd need to get out of the way before you got there, and there'd need to be invisible barriers so you couldn't hit them.
Problem is, you see, the minute you hit a crowd, your car respawns straight to the track because you can't hit people.
No.
So having to do something like that would be very technically demanding.
There's one game that did it really perfectly, and that's Driver San Francisco.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you, I tried hard.
Oh,
I mean, I tried hard to run the
hours
sheep
and
over in
hours.
Forza Horizon 4. I tell you, I chased those sheep down. I did some badass driving trying to get them. But in Driver San Francisco, I tell you, try as I might, they were very hard to hit. I mean, you might get the odd rear leg sometimes, but I was on it trying to hit the people and teleporting from car to car, large vehicles. People just literally got out of your way. So I think if you have like practically a teleport system, so they move like Superman, literally, they're like boom. As soon as you get there, they're not there, sort of thing.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much that game achieved, considering it came out in 2011. 60 frames, people. I mean, oh my god.
Oh, incredible.
Well ahead of its time.
I still look at it today and think, my god, what a technical marvel. Yeah. And just the process of thought, so I would love to see proper crowd simulation, in a
Yes.
rally game, a crowd peeling out of the way. This is what I want to see next gen. I want to see, as well as improved lighting and everything, I want to see crowd simulation. I want to see particle and dust simulation on another level. Really get that feeling of being in the car at a rally event. I feel so many games, and we talked about Overpass recently as a good example. It's just very lonely. It doesn't feel like you're part of a big event.
Yeah.
And crowd simulation is something I really feel that needs to be done much better on these sports games. Just doesn't have the atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something we've banged on about all generation, isn't it? And I don't know. I just can't see the switch being flipped next gen. I think they're still going to strive for other elements that they feel are much more important to the developer. Atmosphere. I mean, having said that, we have seen glimpses, haven't we? We've seen MXGP3 had very good crowds, very deep crowds, flares, atmosphere, flags.
Yes.
That was a great example.
Yeah.
But then the game that came out the very next year, stripped a lot of that away. So they're constantly fighting, aren't they? There's constantly a compromise between certain elements.
MXGP3 had some of the best crowds I think ever in a racing game with modern graphics.
Yeah.
So no, I think that's the thing. And also there's an indie game as well, Victory Heat Rally, I've seen, which has been on Kickstarter. I did contact them, but they haven't sent us any code to work with. That was a while ago in terms of recording video, but there's a screenshot there. So I'll just show you that. Victory Heat Rally, it's a nice little sort of scrolling scaler, which is nice. Other than that, what else is happening in the news? We've got Formula One manager game has been announced from Frontier. This is a big announcement, a surprise announcement. Big developer, David Braben. They've got the pedigree to make a top quality game. Let's just say that I expect awesome management simulation coming to Formula One. This could be for Formula One what Football Manager was, Championship Manager was to football fans. It's got potential to be huge. They've got at least 2 years now to develop the game. Plus the work and pre-work they will have already done in preparing their presentations. So they've already got a good idea of where they're going. That'll be well into development this year, and that'll be an ongoing process. That'll be something that they're developing every year now and building on. And I think that's 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now. This will be a 10-year plan. But they'll start with probably a 5-year development plan, and so that'll take us to 2027. So by then, I mean, it's going to look and play incredibly well. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's a big announcement, but obviously it's a long way off yet. Formula One season, of course, starts this weekend, and really looking forward to that. I could talk about Formula One for an hour. I won't go there. Overpass developer interview is up on the website now. Kevin, you've been handling that. Any highlights from that interview?
I guess we touched on the sort of the balance between creating a challenging game but one that's not overly frustrating, and I feel that that's probably, judging by what how they answered my question, that was pretty much the biggest challenge of the whole development process. So it's you have these physics and you have an environment, and of course you have to match the challenge of the physics versus the environment. So you think about it, it's a massive undertaking, isn't it, to have a game that's going to stop you from going up a hill unless you do it properly or find a way around a certain route, but it has to challenge you to the point where you have to seek out the best route or the best way of doing things. Do you get your wheel on the rock? Do you take the mud path? Do you do this? Do you do that? The game has to be challenging enough to give you these questions, but obviously not too easy and not too challenging to the point where you just can't get up the hill or whatever without being absolutely perfect. And of course that's not going to be very appealing. So it was interesting that they touched on that environmental challenge, and I guess it's just they were very keen to state that you have to spend a lot of time with the game, and that you may have to put in a few hours before you get any real enjoyment from it. They were said, which I thought was very interesting. But I know what they're saying. They're not saying that you're not going to enjoy the game unless you put a few hours in, but they're saying to really unlock the potential of the game to its fullest, You need to invest at least a couple of hours learning the game and really getting the best from it. So it is a unique game. You know, we're happy to see games like this come out for the consoles, especially because it's very much a rare title on the console market compared to PC. So it was very unique, very challenging, and it's a game that you get more out of the more you put in. So those that will sort of stay the distance will get the most out of this game. Once you unlock the better vehicles, you know, it does sort of transform the game. But yeah, it's interesting that they really sort of they understand the difficulty of the game, and they're sort of saying to people, you really need to do the tutorial. You really have to arm yourself with the knowledge and the patience to get the best out of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one that definitely requires patience, isn't it? I mean, there's no doubt about that. Talking of which, we're going to finish off this week then with a very brief touch on Isle of Man, TT Isle of Man 2, Right on the Edge again, which we've been covering some coverage on. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I've been doing my best to make the best content I can that shows you guys as much of the game as possible. I've really tried to bust it open. I'll say probably all of this again on a future team chat anyway. But main thing for me was just to show you guys as much, you know, unedited, unshielded gameplay as possible. And a lot of what I've shown there is just me playing the game, you know, just going through it really. So lots of improvements in TT Isle of Man 2. I'm going to continue to show as much as I can to give you guys an informed decision as to whether it's a game for you. But certainly that, you know, the developers have certainly tried to listen to all the community content, community feedback, shall I say, and implement as much of that as possible into improving the experience all round. Kevin, you'll be reviewing the game, and of course on the 19th of March we'll have a team chat review where we talk about it in much more detail. We'll both have played it properly then across all formats. We'll be comparing the console formats as well, and showing some of that off. So, and you know, if we have some console footage at the time I do this podcast, I'll show some gameplay there here as well. But I haven't played it yet, so we probably won't. But I think that's about it for the news this week. We're keeping it quite short, the podcast this week. We want to get back into a rhythm of it every week as well, and we've got to decide what day and time we're going to do that, to ask you guys for questions. If you do have questions, do say hello. Do say hello in the comments here as well, and we can always see what we can catch up on next week. But I think that's it for now, Kevin. Thanks for your time today.
No problem.
That's it for now, viewers. Do like and subscribe. It supports what we do, and check out all the different videos on the channel, and do say hello on the forum and the website as well. But that's it from us for now. As ever, more soon. Thanks for watching today, viewers. I hope you enjoyed the video, and do like and subscribe. It supports what we do. You can go to the website directly above me here, or check out a couple of other videos on the channel, perhaps things you're interested in terms of racing games, whether it be new or retro. It's all there. Check them out.